I set 1 week to make the largest ever pastel painting. I would need every tool in the box to complete this project on time. But by day 3, I was already ready to quit as the mounting system continually failed me and the deadline approached. With only 2 days left, I finally started painting, and while at first I made great progress, it would ultimately stretch my skills to their absolute limits and force me to develop new techniques that could allow me to paint on this mountainous scale. Before too long, I had to face the idea that I might just never finish. A couple of months ago, I had this really stupid idea, and I'm now sat in the middle of that stupid idea about to start it. I absolutely love the piece Whistlejacket. It's down in the National Gallery. It's one of my favourites. So I decided to try and recreate it using pastels. And this piece is colossal. I'm making it 2 meters tall by almost 2 meters wide as well. I reached out to Hahnemuhle to see if they could send me some large sheets, and they sent me 10 sheets of 50 by 70 velour paper. So I'm going to be piecing these together to recreate the canvas. Ah, that canvas. In the end, it was the source of all of my troubles, but at this early stage, all I needed to do was get 2 large pieces of MDF vertically on the wall attached to my French cleat system. I didn't think this would take that long, but it actually turned out to be quite difficult to get them to sit next to each other, flush on the wall. So it's taken me pretty much most of the day to get this finished, but I've finally done reorganising the studio and I've got those huge panels of MDF secure on the French cleats, which aren't real French cleats, they're just made with skirting boards, and I am now ready to start mounting up the velour paper. I'd like to say this went really well. Just look how happy I appear to be here. That's because I have no idea what's to come and how the next 2 days are going to crush my soul. Basically, I'd completely failed to remember that MDF is very difficult to adhere anything to. I'd taken some low-tack tape because I was really worried about damaging the velour. I didn't want to permanently adhere the velour to the MDF because I couldn't store something this big, but at the same time I didn't want to ruin the work. So I spent all evening attaching this double-sided tape to the MDF, only to get a couple of pieces up before I realised it was never going to work. So I had a minor meltdown last night. I was trying to get all of the paper onto the wall, and I bought this special double-sided tape to do it, and the tape just wouldn't adhere to the MDF, which, to be honest, I should have foreseen, but I spent about 2 hours trying to make this work and it didn't work. So I've ended up opting for just a normal DIY low-tack tape, but I didn't have enough of it, so I was trying to put it up last night with all these tiny little bits on the back, telling myself it was going to work, and of course it looks pretty rubbish because I haven't got a continuous perimeter of the tape. So I went out this morning, got myself lots of new low-tack tape, and now I am finally ready to put the velour paper up again, and then potentially even make a start. Sometimes you have just got to admit when you're defeated, and I have been defeated today. I've spent the whole day putting the paper on the wall with low-tack tape that isn't double-sided because the double-sided wouldn't stick to the MDF, and I finished, went and did some other work, came back and realised this looks rubbish. Like really rubbish. So I went and had some very intense cuddles with my dog, which was very helpful, but I am now covered in dog hair, and realised that it all needs to come down again basically. And I'm going to stop trying to aim to preserve this work. I'm not selling it because it's made of multiple pieces of paper and doesn't look that great. And instead, I'm going to use a spray adhesive. I'm just going to spray the paper and get it stuck properly onto the MDF so that it actually looks good by the end. And so for the 3rd time in this project, I removed all of the paper so that this time I could spray adhere it to the boards. So I am majorly concerned about this bit. This could either go really well or it could go so badly that it's game over. Okay, that has not gone up without a hitch. Very sketchy for a moment there, but it has gone up beautifully now. It's on the wall. I'm like really happy with it because it's actually flat. You may well be wondering how I'm going to get the rest of them up on there. I'm kind of wondering the same thing. Whew. Well, can I have a hand? And that is the sound of my luck changing. Will came and gave me a hand and the spray worked so well. I mean, we got everything up on the wall within about half an hour, so it really didn't take that long, despite the fact I'd already spent about a day and a half trying to put up this paper with tape. Not to mention all the time I'd spent trying to get the MDF up onto the wall as well. It had been quite a long journey to get to this seemingly simple point of having a canvas that was ready to use. So this is the finish now that we've sprayed it. Yeah, there's some patches where we've oversprayed and you can see it's damaged the board. This isn't sprayed to be used with art materials though. This is just an adhesive spray that we had actually for flooring, so do not advise doing this, but as I've said, I'm not selling this piece, so it just doesn't matter. The surface is now actually workable. Obviously I've got the center seam where the two boards meet, but the rest of it is looking, oh my goodness, smooth and flat. And to be honest, it's looking like it's ready to be drawn on. You might think that tracing is such a cheat, but this is a huge drawing, and even tracing was hard because the projector couldn't be sat far enough away in this little room for me to be able to have the entire horse up at once, so it was a bit tricky. After a quick studio reshuffle, I was able to start unpacking my new materials, mostly the Jackson's Handmade soft pastels because they were quite affordable, and then I could create a palette so I could see how these colours were going to behave on this sandy coloured velour paper. And with all that done, I was finally ready to start this painting. I am absolutely loving this process. I've not really spoken about it as I've worked. I'll be putting voiceovers on because I really want to get stuck into the process and into that flow state. But the more I'm doing, the more I'm just falling in love and wish that I could get huge sheets of velour, to be honest, because I'm not going to lie, putting all the sheets together was a bit painful and obviously doesn't look fantastic. But it is wonderful to be able to work on such a large scale with the pastel chalks on the velour paper. It's an absolute dream. Cannot recommend it enough. If you're able to get hold of some of the 50 by 70 sheets, do it. It's just good fun. And I knew that doing equine work on the velour was going to be wonderful. I knew that the velour was going to give me that depth to the colour and the values that I was really after, something that you get from glazing and oils, and also that obviously those soft transitions were going to be perfect for a flat coat, which is exactly what I'm working on. So cannot recommend this project enough. Maybe not at a 2-meter scale, I think that might be a bit much for most people, but on the 50 by 70 sheet, just give it a go. It's so fun. And the pastel chalks, they do have a lot more pigment in them in general than the pencils, because the pencils are harder, they've got more chalk and binder in them. So working with something that has so much more vibrancy as a pastel pencil artist is just absolutely phenomenal. It's really freeing, and I'm absolutely loving the effects that I'm getting on this paper.
Okay, so I feel like it's finally time to talk you through a little bit of what I'm doing, and I'm going to have a nearly full time-lapse tutorial of this inside the membership for people that really do want a deep dive into the construction of this colossal painting. But a lot of this hangs on glazing, which I've spoken about a few times, specifically to do with the oil painting, because that is the original. It's done in glazes of oil. But as I've said, pastel is of course quite different to oil, and because it's not semi-translucent, you can't glaze it in the same way for the same effect as you can with oil painting. And that again is why I'm using the velour paper. Because the paper is so much thicker, I'm able to get an interaction between lots of different colours and tones of the pastel within a similar space all at once. Those different fibres can hold on to different colours within pretty much the same space and give you an effect similar to glazing. And I'm using different brands to get this effect. So primarily I'm using the Jacksons, which are quite soft, and I've also got some Sennelier, which is this one here, and they are even softer. And the softer they are, the harder it is to get a continuous even glaze, but some of the colours will be naturally a little bit harder. And then I've also got some hard pastels, as well as some kind of cheap pastels by Artex, which I'm going to be doing a review of. It'll be the next video to come out on this channel. They're kind of a budget brand, and at first I wasn't sure about them, but I did find while doing this piece in particular that because they were a bit harder whilst not being a true hard pastel, they were able to give me a fairly even glaze over the top of my richer colours, which was really quite useful, to be honest. Generally speaking, the construction of this painting went from dark to light because the lighting is a heavy chiaroscuro style, and because of that we rely on the shadows to get a really good 3D form by the end. So effectively I could just put in all the shadows and you'll have something that would feel really lifelike, bold and realistic without having to do a lot of other work, which is quite nice. Now the real question here, was I finishing on time? I finished with only going over by 2 hours into the following morning. So I almost completed the whole project within a week, which was what I needed to do. This takes up so much space in my studio. I literally cannot do any other work at that time. The tragic thing is, this guy's going in the bin. It really breaks my heart to tell you all, but there is nowhere to put him. All of the sheets are now permanently adhered to the boards, and it's time to get rid of him. So I'm not going to put the terribly sad execution of this piece on YouTube, but thank you so much for watching. Your support is what has allowed me to take one whole week to indulge in creating Whistlejacket by Stubbs.